This is the Chassidic Story Project with Barak Hullman, podcasting from Jerusalem, Israel. This podcast is sponsored by listeners just like you. To become a supporter of this podcast, please go to HasidicStory.com, HASIDIC story.com. You'll never know, you'll never know, you'll never know, you'll never know. In the time of the Alter Rebbe, there was a Chassid who was a simple Jew, and he made his living publishing holy books, such as the Tanakh, Chumashim, and of course the Tanya of the Alter Rebbe. But at the time, in Tsarist Russia, it wasn't permitted to publish holy books unless you had permission directly from the Minister of Education. And this Jew had been caught once already publishing books illegally, and so he went to the Alter Rebbe to ask him for an eitzah and a bracha, for advice and a blessing. The Alter Rebbe said to him to go to Vilna, and there to find a Melamed, and ask him what to do. Now, the Chassid knew that the Minister of Education was in St. Petersburg, where the government was. And Vilna, even though it was a big city and had a lot of Jews in it, didn't have any members of the government living there, and he couldn't figure what a simple Melamed would be able to do in order to help him get a permit to print holy books. But being a Chassid, he knew better than to ask questions, and if the Rebbe said that this was where he needed to go, then he was going to go. So he bought his train ticket and went to Vilna. When he gets there, it didn't take him long to find this Melamed. He goes over to the simple school teacher, cheder teacher, and he said to him, "The Alter Rebbe sent me to you because I need permission from the Minister of Education to print holy books." The Melamed looks at the Chassid and he says, "Me? Why did the Alter Rebbe send you to me? I don't have any connections in the government. I don't even have any money. I don't have anything." And the two of them are trying to figure out what's going on here. But then the Melamed said, "Listen, there's a guy in the community here that actually has a little bit of money and some political connections. Maybe he can help us." So the two of them together go to this other Chassid. And the original Chassid explains the situation, that he needs a permit from the Minister of Education to print books. And the wealthy, connected Chassid, he said, "Well, if I knew the Minister of Education, then I would set you up, but that's way beyond my political connections." But the three of them knew that they were there for a reason. They just couldn't figure out what it was. And so they spent a few days together, learning and walking around, and one day, they're walking on one of the main streets in Vilna, and this royal carriage comes pulling up with 8 horses. Out of it steps a very wealthy and distinguished-looking man. The man steps down the carriage, puts his walking cane on the floor, and notices the 3 Chassidim on the other side of the street. He looks for a second, and then he calls for them, "Hey, come over here." The Chassidim were a little nervous because they didn't know what was going to happen. They cross the street and go over to the distinguished-looking man, and the distinguished-looking man takes his cane and points it at the Chassid who has the print shop. And he said, "I want to see you in my office later today." The Chassid said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I have no idea who you are and where your office is and who you think I am, and I don't know what's going on here." And the distinguished-looking man, he says to the Chassid, "Tell me, do you remember the town that you grew up in?" The Chassid said, "Yeah, of course I remember it." The distinguished man said, "Do you remember there was a child there who caused a lot of trouble, and the whole community couldn't stand him?" He said, "Yeah, of course I remember him." He said, "Do you remember what they did to him?" He said, "Yeah, they punished him by tying him up in the town square and left him there. People threw rotten tomatoes at him. People made fun of him." He said, "That's right." The Chassid said, "But how does your honor know this?" And he said, "Let's continue. You'll find out in a minute." And the distinguished-looking man, he said to the Chassid, "Tell me, do you remember that somebody untied that boy and let him free?" And the Chassid said, "Yeah, it was me. I went and untied the boy, and I let him free." So the distinguished-looking man, he said to the Chassid, "Well, that boy was me, and my whole life I was waiting to meet you so that I could repay the favor. I'm a very wealthy person now. I have a lot of money, and I want to give you some money." And the Chassid said, "Well, really, I'm not interested in money, but if you have a lot of money, you might also have some political connections. You see, I want to print holy books for the Alter Rebbe, And he sent me here to Vilna to meet this Melamed. And the Melamed introduced me to this Chassid over here, who thought he had some political connections, but certainly not like you. What I really need, Your Honor, is permission from the Minister of Education to print holy books. Do you think you could arrange that for me? And the distinguished-looking man said, I can arrange that for you, because I am the Minister of Education. And the Chassid almost fainted on the spot. He couldn't believe how circumstances had arranged themselves. And then he told the Minister of Education, do you understand what's going on here? I went to the Alter Rebbe to get a blessing in order to be able to print holy books. And he sends me to Vilna, a town where I knew there were no government ministers. And I'm walking around for days with these two Chassidim. And here we run into on the street. Do you see the holy vision of the Alter Rebbe? He knew that you would be here on this day in order to repay the debt to me. And the Minister of Education was very impressed with the Alter Rebbe. And he said, let's go right now. They went to his office. He wrote him a permit for printing as many holy books as he'd like. He also gave him a nice sack of gold coins. And he said, thank you, my friend, for freeing me all those years ago. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I was today. So the Chassid went back to the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe said, you asked me for an eitzah and a bracha, advice and a blessing. So the advice I gave you, and you can see that it worked out. And now I'll give you the bracha, the blessing. My blessing is that you successfully print thousands and thousands of books and spread the wellsprings of Chassidus outwards to Jews all over Russia. This was kind of a short story, so I figured I'll throw one more in there. A very short one. There was a chassid that came to the Chassidic, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, and said, Rebbe, I'm having doubts of Hashem's existence. The Rebbe said, seriously? You doubt Hashem's existence? He said, yeah, I'm not sure that God really exists. The Chassidic said to him, neither am I. The chassid was so taken aback. The Rebbe doesn't believe in God? And the Rebbe said to the chassid, you see, you do believe in God. If you were shocked that I didn't believe in God, then obviously God means something to you. And it's just something that's been covered up, and you need to work on polishing it and bringing it out.